this is an issue that's garnered some national headlines. It was talked about like on the last presidential campaign trail. It's something where like my partner is currently in a job that relates to this, and it just seems like nationally speaking, nothing's getting done. And the problem is opioid and heroin usage. And I think more directly what you wanted to talk about were the effects on the communities. Go ahead.
I just wanted to highlight these numbers.
Yeah.
According to the 2006 to 2015 crude rates of drug overdose deaths involving opioids in Wisconsin, there's literally been no county that has been unscathed, all the way from Milwaukee, Dane, Brown, Rock, to Pepin County. Admittedly, Pepin is the place with the fewest, but even then, they had one death in the past decade. And, as I said, they're literally the lowest. Other counties with similar population are seeing many more deaths.
Yeah, I mean, this is a problem here in Wisconsin. It is from Kentucky to Maine to California to
Alaska and Hawaii.
Probably Alaska and Hawaii too. You can make it anywhere, or you can get it anywhere, I assume.
Yeah, I saw,
especially the prescription pill aspect of it.
Mm-hmm. Like those damn pill mills, and the people or doctors overprescribing is directly contributed to this problem.
Yeah.
What? Again, the numbers I have in front of me are only until 2015, but I know for a fact that Rock County had another record year last year for heroin death.
Yeah, I have not heard any indication that both the overdose and death rates and crime associated with it has really gone down in the past 2-3 years. I mostly have heard the opposite, actually.
Yeah.
So, what to tell us about Rock County there?
Rock County, we had 14 deaths last year, and at least 3 homicides that were connected to drug use or drug trafficking.
And give people a perspective on that homicide rate.
I don't think Rock County has had that many homicides ever in its history in 1 year.
Yeah, I mean it's not to give people to paint a picture. It's not like the most pleasant, nicest suburban area ever, but it doesn't have murders.
Right. I mean, we call Beloit, or we say Milwaukee is a big Beloit for because it has very, very similar demographics and population patterns, but Janesville, ever since 2007 when the GM plant closed, has been on a similar progression. Everyone with money moved out, leaving
Paul Ryan and the rest of you guys. Not you, but
man, I'm not involved with those people, but yeah, I don't think homeownership is by percentage has been increasing in the county in the decade, so that's kind of a sign in and of itself.
Yeah.
But Channel 3, to their credit, recently had a relatively long article about Janesville's crime problem, because in 2017, apparently, the crime spiked, and almost, just to give this percentages, but 47% of people with drug arrests were involved in property crimes, according to their random sample. 61% of people who were arrested for theft were involved in drug crimes, which is probably possession or light trafficking.
Mm-hmm.
There was a 17.2% increase in violent crime. Admittedly, part of that was because they changed the definition of rape to include forcible rape of males, but
I just want to add to that. I was talking with my partner, and it says it in that chart, but I didn't notice it right away. That is an FBI designation change.
Mm-hmm.
So these rates are coming from the FBI. I don't know if they would have had different internal metrics, or that's not necessarily a reflection of charges and convictions of sexual assault cases. That's just how the FBI, which, by the way, took until what year for the FBI to...
Yes, guys can get raped too.
Oh my God! Like, if these people were being charged and convicted, why weren't they keeping records of that? I mean, oh my God. Anyway, that's a little, well, maybe it's not that besides the point, but it's a little besides the point. I think it said in that article the police chief was quoted just anecdotally and observationally. The police noticed that a lot of the people, it said something in there that they kind of have some grasp of this community, and they guess that most of them afford it through crime, through theft and retail theft and stuff like that. Which is just so disheartening.
Well, it doesn't encourage businesses to move to that community if there's, increasing rates of property crime and theft and anything else and everything else that's associated with it.
Yeah, why would the next GM plant go there? Not necessarily GM, of course, but just whatever next big manufacturing or whatever industrial hub go there as opposed to. But the thing is, though, if that might be becoming less of an issue because it's so omnipresent.
Well, it's just something that people have to cope with.
Well,
heroin is everywhere.
The businesses,
yeah.
Good luck finding. Yeah, okay, maybe you're not going to go into what is the really Huntington, West Virginia, but where are you gonna find the city that's not being eroded by this?
Mm-hmm.
They maybe exist now, but if this problem isn't widely addressed, it'll widely spread.
Well, no, like the Foxconn plant, I mean, it could have been put closer into the city to be closer to, the people that are going to work there, or it could be put on the outskirts where there's just access to transportation and they can get a wider, web of people.
Well, and they can build housing nearby that is detached from
Racine.
Yeah, or any existing nest of problems that these execs are not going to want to deal with.
Yeah. I mean, even in Taiwan, they may have a little bit more crime than probably mainland China, but this is probably orders of magnitude bigger than any problem that they would see over there.
Yeah. I was listening to something a while back. They're interviewing a business owner from it was West Virginia. I mean, I know we're talking about Wisconsin, but and they're talking about drug tests, and he was like, I don't care about marijuana. He's like, that is the least of my concerns. I would gladly hire someone who has marijuana in their system. He's like, I can't even find, it was like a manufacturer. He's like, I can't find people to work because I'm not going to hire someone who's strung out on heroin or other opiates. You
can't find anybody with a clean piss test for that.
Talk about something that's going to push ahead automation. If we can't even have.
Interesting. I hadn't thought about that.
People with, robots don't have drug problems.
I suppose.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, that's just something that came to mind right now. But because a lot of these towns are, this problem is hitting the Rust Belt, right? Probably as hard as maybe not. I don't know about which states exactly have it harder, but I know it's hitting the Rust Belt hard. West Virginia, Ohio, Missouri, Wisconsin, Michigan.
Illinois.
I don't know specifically about Indiana, but I'd be shocked if there weren't a bunch of people there on heroin.
I would be surprised if that was one of those places, or I wouldn't be surprised if that was one of those places that just didn't keep numbers.
That's a good point.
I mean, if you don't take the numbers, you can't report them, right?
Yeah. And if you live in Indiana and know differently,
Please let us know.
Because until then, I'm just going to assume you people don't give a shit. So yeah, I don't know. Okay, so I'm going to guess your number one solution to helping this would be changing incarceration practices and rates.
But no. That's,
okay, so what do you think?
Well, we need to be proactive. Like, obviously, with America had like more than 60,000 deaths last year from heroin. Like, it's overtaking heart disease and car accidents as the leading way that we kill ourselves. This is a public health crisis. This, more than anything else, should tell people that we need some kind of single-payer or universal healthcare system here in the United States.
Mm-hmm.
Like, obviously they're self-medicating for something, either physical or mental, but if they had access to a doctor who could, help them not feel whatever pain it is that they're feeling, they could probably not, like, for instance, people wouldn't be getting on heroin or opioids, or they would be better able to get off of them, either through treatment or, mental health counseling.
Yeah.
And then, of course, change the incarceration rates to not lock up the people who are not responsible for it, which I will make one addendum to that is I really detest how a lot of prosecutors around Wisconsin have been getting manslaughter convictions on people who are just arranging buys.
Yeah. It's not even the person who's
selling the heroin.
Yeah. Is that a Wisconsin? I know that's been happening in Wisconsin for like 10 years. They've been getting more of those.
Mm-hmm. Well, it's a national trend, but
it is okay.
Yeah, it's we're calling out Wisconsin anyway, so. And the fact that there aren't new treatment centers in Milwaukee and Wisconsin more broadly is also atrocious. I don't think there's anything but 3 medication-supported treatment facilities here in Wisconsin, which is the most reliable and proven way to overcome heroin addiction.
The thing that, though, might make that aspect a little difficult is, or that as a solution. It would help to have more, but you're probably going to put those in cities, right? And though there's more of this in cities, there's obviously more people in cities as well.
But as we pointed out at the beginning of the segment, every county is being touched with it. Yeah,
maybe you're not putting it in Pepin, which has had 1 in the past 12 years, but in I don't know, does Waukesha get one if there's one in Milwaukee? I mean, that's the way that lawmakers and bureaucrats are going to think about it. Like, well, there's one just this far away, but for someone who steals to buy drugs and does not have a car probably right now.
Right. They're not going to be able to make that 2-hour trip to 3 counties over to get to a treatment facility, and who's to say they won't relapse before they get there? Or just turn around.
Yeah. I'm not saying it's a bad, of course it's a good idea. It's just, I have a feeling that would be a harder sell because the problem's so widespread, so the solution has to be widespread.
Right, because the heroin is making it to all these small counties and towns.
Oh yeah, that's not gonna, a little 20-minute drive down the interstate is not gonna stop a trafficker.
Well, to my mind, this is why we also need broader access to mental health services. There's no reason, even towns like Clinton couldn't support a counselor full-time.
Yeah. That's a good... So tell people, how big is Clinton?
Clinton has about 1,000 people in it. But mental health, 10% of the population in the aggregate has some kind of untreated mental health disorder.
Mm-hmm.
Like, even if it's just relatively light depression, those people probably should have some kind of access to mental health services.
Yes.
Because even if you do have a large support network, you don't necessarily always feel like the people who love you understand what you're going through and know how to support you, so to speak. But yeah. Mental health services and being able to go see a doctor, I think, would do a lot of good in minimizing and mitigating the effects of this heroin crisis. And one thing I've always wondered since, we invaded Afghanistan is how is this heroin, which Afghanistan produces the vast majority of the world's supply, getting to the United States? We are apparently spending billions upon billions of dollars on it, and how? I mean, they got to be trucking it off of mules through mountain passes at some point, but it has to get on an airplane or a boat.
Yeah. Well, that's what The Wire was about, I guess.
Yeah.
But you'd think it would be hard to smuggle in. Well, but that's kind of the point of the prescription medication aspect of this folded in, is that heroin, the illicit drug that you pretty much have to get from, through a roundabout way from
irregular
places
sources.
like Afghanistan, has been around in high quantities for many years. But the rates of addiction have gone up dramatically because there's a new source, essentially. Or, opiate medication has been around for a while, but it's in much more quantity the past 10 years. And the rates are almost identical. The addiction rates going up and the death rates and the overdose rates are almost identical to those quantities increasing.
Yeah, you can see the absolute correlation between them. It's the overprescribing problem, and it's, I don't know.
Well, yeah, I think part of it's the opioids cause more addiction, although I think there's still research to be done. That's, I think I'm allowed to say this, that's part of what my partner is involved in a research of. But anyway, so I think it can increase the rates, but then it also, I think, functions as it goes both ways. There's people who are on heroin who then find it easier to get opioids. Whereas if that was taken out of the equation, maybe they would just be out of luck at that point and maybe seek treatment more. Or
insofar as they're able.
Yeah, obviously, there's problems with accessing that, but for what it's worth, people have accessed it. Maybe not enough, but again, we've been dealing with heroin for decades now, and that seemed to stay at sort of a little bit up and down. It had areas where it got worse, but it didn't become this national crisis that's it's like a health epidemic, a national security issue, and an existential crisis all at once.
And a matter of corporate governance too, because the companies that made what's the drug I'm trying to think of? Hydrocodone, oxycodone, all these opioid drugs. These companies have made billions of dollars off of this, and the executives are very, very careful to not let their names leak into the news.
Yeah, some of the state attorney generals have been filing suit over that recently. I don't know if any of those have been resolved yet.
No, it's too big an issue to happen overnight.
Yeah, it's like the cigarette cases back in the day. Those took years.
Yeah, decades, kind of.
My dad used to work for one of those companies being sued. Many, before opioids were being pushed onto people left and right. But when I saw a story about it, they like named 3 companies. I was like, oh shit, that was my dad's employer for many years. But yeah, he got out of it years ago, well before this all started.
Well, before it turned into just kind of a drug empire.
Yeah. It's funny though. In first grade, they asked me what my dad did, and I said drug dealer. And my parents got called in, and I knew that was a joke at the time. But
it's funny to them.
I don't know. If you were a pharma rep within the past 10 years, that's not as funny of a joke anymore.
Nope.
I don't know. All right. Did you have anything more to say on?
It's not going to get any better. It's not going to get any less prevalent. People are just going to continue to get more and more desperate and hopeless. So maybe not the most positive segment we've ever had.
Yeah. Well, this and genocide in Myanmar, I think, are.
Yeah, we'll get to that later.